You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
What if Galaxy AI could turn your to-dos into to-dos? Unlock everyday simplicity with the AI-integrated Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra at Best Buy. Pre-order now at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. Hey everybody, it's Chris Spangle. I want to thank you for listening, and this is a bit of a different episode. We had a bit of a scheduling mix-up this past weekend, so there wasn't an episode on Saturday. So in lieu of that, I wanted to bring you a conversation between Spike Cohen and Brian Nichols. Brian is one of the great hosts here on the We Are Libertarians network, along with Remzo Martinez and his show On the Run, and Trisha Stewart-Mann and Gingerarchy. Make sure you go to wearelibertarians.com and download all of our shows, and I hope you enjoy this great conversation between Brian and Spike.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
Can I pause for a second and just note that we got Brian on here who's getting Congressman Massey on, and our typical lineup includes like homeless people that believe in Bigfoot.
Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show, your source for common sense politics on the We Are Libertarians network. The Brian Nichols Show is the fastest growing liberty podcast that brings together people from all means of political thought as we seek to have meaningful conversations about the issues you care about. At the Brian Nichols Show, our goal is to leave the audience educated, enlightened, and informed. And now your host, Brian Nichols.
Well, hello there, folks. It's Monday, and this is the third time you've heard my voice this week, so I apologize because you have to hear it again throughout this entire episode, plus 2 awesome episodes coming up here the second half of the week. But yes, hello, welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. Yet we started things off here early on Sunday. We have a new candidate special that's going to be airing here on the Brian Nichols Show, focusing on libertarian, or not just libertarian, but just pro-liberty candidates who are out there and raising their names, raising their candidacies, and raising the issues that they're focusing on in their respective elections. And to start things off, we had Joel Getz. Joel Getz is running for mayor of East Stroudsburg, PA. So make sure if you did not get the chance to check out that episode on Sunday, you go ahead and check that out. And then we had our awesome brand new episode that just launched here as well, our 1-year anniversary of 15 Days to Slow the Spread, a highlight of 4 phenomenal episodes over the past year discussing, just what was going to happen and what we shouldn't be doing from a government response standpoint to COVID, and great conversations we had with Dan Mitchell, Jeffrey Tucker, Matt Kibbe, and Nick Hudson. So if you did not get the chance yet to check out that episode, for posterity's sake, it is going to be a super, super important episode. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and make sure you check out that episode and bookmark that one, because anytime you're going to get somebody out there who's like, well, Brian, we need to do the government lockdowns to be safe because we didn't know what the science said, you can be like, hold up, because actually back in April 2020, we kind of knew what the science was going to say, and here's the proof. And you can have this episode as a great tool in your toolbox. But why are you here today? You're here because Spike Cohen is returning to the Brian Nichols Show, that former VP candidate back in 2020 for the Libertarian Party and head of the amazing Muddied Waters empire. Spike is returning to the Brian Nichols Show today to discuss what is the future for the Libertarian Party, number one. But number two, what are we doing wrong? What can we as a party do better to reach people beyond our spheres of influence? It's always a great conversation with Spike because, yes, we are both from the same brain of the school of thought of sales. We need to be creating value, and every conversation ends up going into some type of sales conversation. So a great opportunity to dig in that with Spike and more. So with that being said, on to the show. Spike Cohen returning to the Brian Nichols Show.
I'm always happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me again, Brian.
Spike, you have been so busy. Let's see. You got Muddied Waters. You got your appearances on Kennedy, it seems like every other day. You've been doing
almost, pretty much once a week. Yeah.
A brand new podcast, which focuses on, actually what's winning, and it's the culture of winning. Spike, when I gotta ask you this, when do you sleep? And can you please tell me, how you're functioning on what I must assume is less than an hour of sleep per night?
And it's going to get more intense now because pretty much every weekend between now and at least, I think, through June, I'm going to be in a different state doing either at a Libertarian state convention or a candidate forum. Or a campaign workshop. I'm going to be up in Alaska next month for a thing called Gold Rush, where we're having experts on how to help run campaigns and what candidates need to do to be able to be effective. I'm going to be speaking at that. We have some potentially some shooting events for fundraisers that are coming up where people can donate money to get to shoot guns with me to help various local and state affiliates. They keep me very busy, and I actually do sleep 8 hours a day on average. I just am hyper. It's interesting. I was retired for the better part of almost 4 years before I decided to get into politics, and I went straight into running for VP. But I was retired for a few years from business. This is kind of a reminder, hearkening back to what things were like when I had my company. I still got sleep. When I was awake, I was hyper efficient. And so I've been using a lot of those efficiency tools. I also have an incredible team behind me. I have Brian Lambrecht is the one who manages my media and events scheduling and management and booking and things like that. I have Caitlin Cloven, who is in charge of my social media. She's built an incredible volunteer team under her. I have Chrissy Workers helps with the communications end of it, with the press releases and things like that. I have an incredible team of volunteers who are helping me to be able to do all the things that I'm doing. But yeah, no, I definitely do sleep, but I don't I don't dilly dally a lot when I am awake. Put it that way.
Consistency is key too, and you're constantly doing something. And I think what's fun is I'll go on, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, wherever it may be, and I'm guaranteed to see something Spike Cohen related, right? And that is important, staying on the top of people's news feeds, or just on the top of their mind newsfeed, if you will, constantly being something that people are seeing. And in this case, it's about what's actually going to be winning. And I think right now this has been the main focus of the LP, right, as we move forward to 2022 and beyond, is, well, what's going to be winning in the Libertarian Party? And we see kind of this split right now, right? We see more of the traditional pragmatic, I guess we'll kind of use, if we're going to use terms, I'll kind of use the pragmatic-ish, label for this. The folks out there who are saying, hey, we have to go along to get along. And then there's the more, I'd say, radical / Mises folks out there who are saying, no, we have to be consistent in principles, consistent in messaging, and let's, do things in a little bit different of a way than we've been doing things. So I see this as, and I set this up, this has been kind of what I've seen as where we're really ultimately heading as we approach the convention. And I guess kind of, Spike, you would have a better pulse in terms of what's actually happening from a more, shall we say, a hierarchical structure in the LP, being the former VP candidate. So talk to us, kind of just based on your gut feeling, I guess, and your experience in talking to some folks out there. Where do you think the LP is going to be heading as we move forward?
So there's two questions there, obviously, or two main questions. One is, what is the most effective way for us to move forward in terms of, principle versus pragmatism, or even if there is a trade-off that needs to be made there. And then obviously the second one is, regardless of what's the best way to do it, what's most likely to win in the current politic of the Libertarian Party.
Indeed,
I want to answer that second part first. I honestly, it's a bit of a toss-up right now. The main factions right now are sort of what you said. There's the pragmatists, which not always, because there are definitely some radicals within the ranks of the pragmatists, but they tend to be more on the moderate side. Now, interestingly enough, outside of libertarian circles, they would absolutely 100% be seen as wild-eyed radicals.
Oh, absolutely.
But within our culture of libertarianism, they're seen as, anywhere from, a little bit moderate all the way to, straight up milquetoast, and everything in between. And again, I do want to say, there are many pragmatists who actually are radical in their beliefs as well. So it's certainly not to say that they're not principled. And even the ones that are more moderate, that's their principle. They are principled, but that's their principle. And then you have on the other side the radicals and the Mises Caucus people, and I basically call them the radicals. These are the ones who are saying no. Our platform is already a compromise between minarchists and anarchists. The radical side tends to be either more anarchist, like me, or just very, very radical minarchist, minimal. I call them nanarchists, like minimal, the most, small, barely noticeable government possible. And they say that we don't need to budge on that. It's really hard to tell which faction, if you will. And it's kind of sad to talk about them that way, because the reality is they probably agree on 95% of things. And the fact that they're so often at loggerheads like they are, it's kind of honestly saddening at times, especially because I have friends on both sides of this.
Yeah, same, yeah.
And many of them have friends on both sides. It's an unfortunate thing, and it's they're not going to get into physical fights, but it is a fight for the future of the party. So I get it. It's really hard to tell right now. Mises is definitely a fast-growing caucus. The pragmatists have always traditionally had the numbers to get what they wanted, but this time around, I mean, we got a little bit of a foreshadowing of how things went. The presidential candidate was Jo Jorgensen, who among the pragmatist camp was certainly the most radical among them in terms of her policies. I am an anarchist, and I didn't see anything I objected to in her campaign platform. And I often had people ask me that, is there anything you don't agree with? And I'm like, well, short of pressing the Rothbard button and making government go away, if we're going to look at this realistically, what we plan to try to do if we could actually get into positions of power, this is a really, really good start. And I mean, some of this stuff is going straight to, we never talked about what we wanted government to do. We talked about what we didn't want government to do. Yep. And what our plan was to have them do less of that. So the radicals did pretty well in that front. And then for their VP candidate, they got me, a literal self-described outspoken anarchist. That probably wouldn't have happened in 2016 or 2012. And certainly not in 08 or 04. So, that leaves us with the possibility that, by 2022 or certainly by 2024, the radical side could certainly have enough numbers to be able to be in the majority. And I think that would, there's a lot of unfortunate language about takeovers and things like that. And it's unfortunate because it's unnecessarily adversarial. I think that a lot of the people on the more radical side would have a lot more friends outside of their immediate circles, or a lot more allies, I should say, if they weren't using oppositional and adversarial language. And they'll say to me, yeah, but Spike, the Prags took over. Yeah, but they didn't call it that. And that's exactly my point. With that said, will they be able to take over? And meanwhile, take over will simply, there's not going to be a purge. You're not going to, line people up and shoot them. the takeover will simply be that they're in the majority when it comes to the bylaws. They're in the majority when it comes to the platform. They're in the majority when it comes to who's being nominated to offices, and also who's being nominated to positions within the party, the chair, the vice chair, that kind of stuff. I really don't know. I think 2022 and 2024 are going to be nail biters in that regard. Going to the question of what's the best way forward. I think that, and I think we've talked about this before on my appearance, the previous appearance. Libertarians talk a lot about the false dichotomy that we got to choose between the Republicans and the Democrats. But interestingly enough, we have a false binary of our own. We often are told that we either have to sacrifice principle in order to be more relatable to everyday, normies, normal people, and that we have to just kind of water it down a little bit because it's kind of scary, and, we have to do it that way, which I disagree with 100%, or we have to be brutalists. We can't just be principled. If someone asks us about, public schooling or public education, we have to say that, people who use single parents whose children are in school are welfare mothers, and we have to call the troops murderers. We have to go to the most brutal and extreme example of how to present this. Those are both wrong in their own special way, right? Like, and I'm seeing you nodding your head here. You're in marketing and you're in sales. Imagine if, I don't, have you done cold calling? You've done cold calling?
So my day job as a sales executive, I also lead a sales team, and their entire job is prospective cold calls. That's 100%.
Okay. So then the background. Okay. So imagine if you're cold calling, and let's lay out both of those scenarios. First cold call, you call the business owner and you say, hi, I've got a great opportunity for your business. And they go, what is it? And you go, well, what if you could be moderately more successful? Nothing too extreme, nothing that's going to rock the boat, but just do a little bit better. And meanwhile, they're trying to figure out how to get you off the phone in the first place. And you go, I'm thinking, I don't want to get too out there, but maybe 5 or even 10% gains over the next year or so. And they go, buddy, I don't even know who you are. No, thank you. They hang up. Now imagine you call them. We'll use the other scenario. And you go, hey, I got a great opportunity for you. And they go, what is it? And you say, everything you're doing is wrong because you're an idiot. And you're brainwashed into thinking that this works, and it doesn't because you're a chump. Now, let me tell you about my great ideas. You're going to get hung up on in both of those cases. And now you've got an enemy too. What if instead you just met them where they are and connected with what they needed?
How about
and
that?
So, Eureka. One of the, when I got the vice presidential nomination, a lot of people on the Prague side were horrified. Okay. My associations with Vermin Supreme. I'm an anarchist. I'm a podcaster. I've got, a little bit more of a extreme way of presenting things, more edgy, meme lord type of stuff. They've come to, not all, but most pragmatists have come to respect me because they understand that there's an actual method behind what I'm trying to do. The flip side of most Prags, is that however moderate or radical they may be, if you can show them that what you do works and actually connects with people, they'll be as big of a fan of yours as someone that agrees with you 100% on the principle behind it. In the same token, a typical radical just wants to see that our principled presentation of libertarian ideas is being presented in an effective way. Now, you're listening to this and thinking, this sounds oddly unifying for a libertarian. And yet here we are. That's what I hope wins out. And that's part of what I plan on doing going around the country, is saying we don't have to choose between being relatable and being principled. In fact, those things are mutually inclusive. They're synergistic. People want a radical change and departure from what's happening right now. You can't scare them about it, but they do want a big change from what's happening. They voted for Biden because he was being presented as a rapid departure from Trump, which he is not, but that's what he was presented. They voted for Trump because he was a rapid departure from anything that had ever happened before. He's not, but that's what they wanted. We voted for Obama because he was presenting himself as a rapid departure from anything we'd ever had before. The people want this. The people want that radical departure. We just have to present it to them in a way that connects. And that's what I'm going around the country, trying to tell both Prags and radicals, we don't have to do this Faustian bargain. We can actually meet in the middle by meeting people where they are and relating to them. And anyone who's hearing us now, go back and listen to my first episode with Brian if you haven't already, and we talk about exactly how to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, spoiler alert, it's really sales. It's sales 101. And I hate the fact that I always do this. It always comes back to sales, folks. But I mean, really, you're selling yourself. You're selling an idea. You're selling a service. You're selling something. And it is the way you present the information. You can't take a freaking book and just chuck it at them and expect them to think that, oh, well, all the information of the book is valuable. You have to be able to make it so it's easy to digest and easy to understand. And I guess, as we're moving forward, that's partly where we're seeing a lot of the frustration, shall we say? And that is, well, how are we going to be reaching people? Because the messaging, the marketing arm, if you will, of the LP, it hasn't been doing a good enough job. And I will say, I'm going to give absolutely credit where credit's due. I've seen an uptick just even in the past week or so of the LP page, relative to what it was doing prior. I mean, it was doing 1 or 2 posts every other day or so. Now it seems like it's doing quite a few posts per day. So at least it's actually utilizing this 250,000 followers that it has. So that's exciting. Mm-hmm. But I guess when we're looking at how we're going to bring this marketing and this messaging going forward, what do you think? And I guess, you have the experience and obviously going and talking to people. What do you think we need to do from a national perspective? Is it more so that we need to have just like one overarching theme, or should we allow the LP national to kind of pick 2 major issues and just have that be the primary focus?
I think that I think that we need to have, you can't pick one single thing, obviously. I do think it needs to be 2 or 3 things. And in my opinion, those 2 or 3 things, at least right now, are largely around COVID. So the healthcare questions around COVID, the preparedness questions around COVID, the vaccine questions around COVID, the lockdowns, which even though they're related to COVID, are a uniquely different issue, because this is not just about COVID related stuff. This is about a government that decides that it can tell you whether or not you're essential indefinitely. And, that we're talking about the soft internment of most of the population. So that is a uniquely separate issue, even though it's related to COVID, and those things work together in your messaging to talk about, how we got here in the first place. The lockdowns and the idea of government presuming that authority in the first place and the devastation it's caused is a uniquely separate issue. And then the next thing, at least right now, I think moving forward is going to continue to be criminal justice and police brutality issues. Black Lives Matter did not come out of nothing. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, it wasn't some vast left-wing Marxist plot to get people on the streets. The reality is this has been something that has been brewing for quite some time. It has been getting worse, and it is only going to continue to get worse as long as the only people that are talking about it are the party of Kamala Harris and the party of Donald Trump. And we need to get the message out there. Those would be the 3 things I would focus on. It's not to say that we never talk about anything else. If you look at my messaging on my social media, my overarching themes are behind that. But yet I still talk about crypto when that emerges as a subject. I still talk about, the wars when those come up as a subject. I still talk about, healthcare reform or education reform or immigration or anything else. When things come up, the party can seize upon that issue. We aren't large enough to do what Donald Trump, well, he can't do it anymore either. But back when he had access to social media, he could change the conversation on a dime by just tweeting out something. Joe Biden right now could change the conversation on a dime by, tweeting or posting something or just putting out press releases or whatever. We don't have that kind of structural power to be able to change the conversation that way. But what we can do is, because we have the best ideas, when someone else, when the conversation moves towards something, we can go to that conversation with by far the best presentation and best ideas. And I think we need to hammer away at that on social media. And then here's the other aspect of that, because social media is not always an accurate reflection of what's happening in the real world. I would argue that if you looked at social media engagement, put it this way, a lot of people that were libertarians on the internet were shocked that Joe and I only got 1.2 3%, whatever it was. Because if you looked at it on social media, there'd have been no reason to think that we weren't going to get like 7, 8, 9%, maybe even 10%, or at least 5%. In terms of just our relative share of the amount of conversation happening. The internet is not real life, which is why I think more importantly than what national needs to do, and I know that's the conversation we're having, but a lot of what I'm talking about going around from state and local affiliates is the most important thing we need to be doing right now is building the party up at the grassroots level, at the local affiliate level, at the state affiliate level, identify candidates who are able to run. You know, so many people want to run for Senate and governor and Congress, and I get it. What if you run for city council and actually get it? And you get into city council and you're able to make positive changes in your immediate community. And then not only that, but you can get more libertarians elected so you can make even more positive changes. And then y'all can run for state house and be making positive changes at the state level. And then y'all can run for Congress or Senate or governor, having years of history of libertarian governance to be able to show it. That's what I'm hammering away on this year and next year is, yes, we need to run the federal races too, but we need to be spending more time on the races that we already have the tools and resources and proven ability to win, and then eventually be able to scale that up. And when I say eventually, it could be by 2022. It could be by 2024. There's no reason to think that if we don't play our cards right, we can't end up having whoever our presidential candidate is in 2024 at least be able to make enough of an impact to get on the debate stage. Yes. But we have to do this stuff in order to do that. We cannot continue the same 4-year cycle of pie in the sky thinking, and then sort of nesting and coping afterwards with, well, the system's rigged. Yes, we know the system's rigged. How we are winning currently
Water
in
is
local
wet.
and regional races. Yes, water's wet. They're corrupt, but we do win races. How do we do that? Let's do more of that. And then let's eventually be able to scale that up so we can do more of that at higher levels. And so that's my main focus right now.
So we talked about what to do. And I think sometimes the question that we forget to ask is, well, what should we be looking out for? What are some red flags or things that we need to make sure that we do better going forwards? So what would you say are some things maybe that are on the horizon that we should be at the very least cautious of, Spike?
That's an excellent question. What should we not be doing, basically?
More
what should
or less.
we do? Yeah, what should we not do? I think one big thing is, as I was talking about with the false dichotomy, don't fall into the either trap of thinking you got to water down the message. Best case scenario with watering down the message is you essentially con enough people to think you're some kind of moderate, and then they look at your platform and go, oh, you were lying all along. You didn't just want to do school choice. You wanted to abolish the Department of Education. Why is that? And now you're scrambling defensively, explaining why you want to abolish the Department of Education. Why not go straight into it, saying this? My last time on Kennedy, I went on and explained why we needed to abolish the federal and state departments of education and put it entirely at the community level. And I had a conservative on this side of me saying yes. Okay. And I had a Democrat on this side of me going,
that's not a no.
We don't have to it wasn't a no. Now, he didn't agree with everything I was saying, but back when he would say yes, but he's a black man, and he kept saying, a lot of these conversations aren't, looking at the needs of communities of color and black communities. And I said, yeah, that's why the community should be handling it.
Boom.
Okay. So we don't need to fall into the milquetoast trap, but we also don't have to fall into the brutalist trap. And so I think and it's something sometimes we do both. But I think that we need to remember that this is not about sacrificing one versus the other. This is about being principled in a way that connects with everyday people. If I can show you that I actually give a damn about your situation, and if I can show you that I understand where you're coming from on your situation, and then I can demonstrate, because again, we're libertarians, we can systemize stuff all day long. I can explain to you how we got here. Now I've shown you that I care about you, that I want what's best for you, and that I know how we got here. Everything I say past this point is you going to the logical conclusion of saying, well, then he must know how to get us out of this, which means anything I present to you, if it makes sense and is intuitive, is going to connect with you.
I just did that sales training with my team. Oh my god! Were you flying the wall this morning? 'Cause I mean, just literally.
I must have been. Yeah, I must have been.
I literally
this is basic sales stuff.
Yeah, I literally was like
basic
solutions. I mean, if you're gonna actually go in, I didn't mean to interrupt Spike, but like if you're gonna go in just like guns ablazing, like telling about how great your solution is, and instead of actually trying to listen and trying to hear actually what's the real problem, that's where you get the real. The real trust. And once they believe that you actually are an expert and you have the real solution to the problem, and it's truly the solution to their problem, not what you think the problem is, but you've narrowed it down, you've confirmed, you've gotten rid of all the objections, you've closed all the doors, and you've pinpointed exactly what the problem is. So long as you show that solution, then going forward, they're going to trust you in so many other different topics. I mean, one of I'll go kind of like to my day job. Some of our best accounts are accounts that shits at the fan. And the reason being is because they see when we're there and we're bringing the value to the table saying, hey, we're here to make this right. And then they realize, well, what would happen? Because this would happen probably even if I didn't have, in this case, the company I'm working with in this example, which is my company, then it'd be me being solo. And then they see the value. Okay, this is why I work with a company like this. And I think that's what we need to be. We need to be that trusted advisor. So, Spike, I'm excited because I know we're seeing, folks like you, leading the charge, and you're getting people to start to think about these things. And I'm hearing it on different shows. The conversations are changing for the better. And I think that's good. We're starting to talk about this stuff in a way that is, again, beyond kind of like let's talk about Rothbard and Hayek. It's like, no, let's talk about this issue that, Susie is dealing with, and how can we deal with Susie's problems? And now we're starting to get into this kind of solution-based approach to presenting our ideas. So you've been doing great work, obviously, over at Muddied Waters. You've been doing Culture of Winning, focusing now on your new freaking tour, which I don't know how, again, you're going to add this on top of everything. So let's kind of look at this. Where can folks find you, I guess, as you're going across the United States, and I guess stay up to date with all that's going to be going on as you're staying, obviously, incredibly busy?
So if you want to check out what I'm doing, Muddy Waters Muddy Waters Media are my shows, the Muddy Waters of Freedom, and My Fellow Americans. If you go to muddywatersmedia.com, or if you go to we're on every social media platform. We're on every podcasting platform. If you look for Muddied Waters Media, you will find us. And if you look for me on pretty much any platform, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, I'm on TikTok. I need to get more active on TikTok. That's my next big project. Right now, I've been tackling Instagram and getting comfortable with it. The next big one is TikTok, and my poor social media team teaching me slowly how to use this stuff. But if you look for Spike Cohen on the internet, you will find me. And the one thing I want to close with, if I may, Brian,
please.
And you'll be able to appreciate this, and anyone in cold calling will be able to appreciate this. My cold calling conversion ratio was somewhere around 28-29%. And the reason, and that now to a lot of people, that sounds like I just said, 3 out of 4 people I spoke with told me no. That's actually amazing in the world of cold calling.
That's an incredible number.
Here is why. Half of it is that I did some qualifying, and the qualifying was basically like, are they a big budget company? Is their website garbage? Is it obvious they're not getting anything from their company, as opposed to just like straight up cold calling out of a list of companies on a thing or whatever. But the reason that it was so high was because I spent the first 2 or 3 minutes of the call asking them questions. And I would say, I'd call and I'd say, hey, is this such and such? And they'd go, yes. I'd say, oh, great. I'm so glad I was able to get you. Spike Cohen here. Wanted to talk with you about your business and your website. Tell me again, what is and I would start talking about, what was your target goal for ROI on your website? What was your target goal for revenue? And have they met that? And yeah, 3 out of 4 people would be like, what the hell? And they hang up. But the fact that I led with questions that were things they were already thinking about before I called them piqued their interest enough to start answering. And I usually knew I had them if there'd be about a 2 or 3 second delay of them trying to figure out what the hell's going on. There'd be that 2 or 3 seconds of silence, and then they'd start answering the question. Well, yeah, we were hoping to have and I knew I had them. From there, I would explain. First of all, I would listen, and I'd ask repeated questions. And 2 things are happening, and I think we talked about this on the last episode. Anytime you're doing this method where you're asking people questions and actually listening to them, 2 things are happening. Number one, you're identifying all their pain points. You're identifying everything that it is they need, everything it is that they need to hear, that they're having problems with, and that they need your solutions for. The other thing that's happening is that person is, whether they like it or not, developing a bond with you. Their lizard brain is hearing the person that I am talking to right now wants to hear everything I have to say. People spend $100+ an hour to go sit with someone and talk about their problems. And you're doing it for free, not for an hour, but meanwhile, I would have done it for an hour if they wanted me to. I'm just letting them vent. I mean, half the time they'd start venting about, stuff that had to do with their clients. Yes. I didn't stop them or redirect them. I'd say, man, that's terrible. Tell me about that. And let them talk about it. Because by the end of that conversation, they were so happy I called them, if for no other reason than I was just listening to them. And then from there, once I had identified all their pain points, and once I had completely lowered all of their cognitive defenses, or actually more accurately, once they themselves lowered all their own cognitive defenses by talking to me and having that moment of catharsis that they needed all day, probably all week. Then from there, I'd say, here's what I'm hearing. And I'd basically reflect back everything that they said. I'm hearing that you have spent however many thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, and you were expecting or being told that you were going to be getting this kind of return on investment. You were going to be getting these kinds of numbers. And instead, you're getting a fraction of that. And they go, yeah, exactly. I'd say, here's why that is. And then I'd very basic, not throw a bunch of jargon at them. I wouldn't equating it to politics. I wouldn't start telling them about the invisible hand. I would just, in very basic terms, explain why it wasn't working, what my plan was. And then usually by the time I had called them, I already knew what I wanted to sell them on anyway. And then I'd sell them on that. And that was how I had that conversion. Now, sometimes they'd say, okay, let me think about it. And I'd say, of those people, maybe half of them got back to me and the other half I never heard from. But including that half that never got back to me, or actually not including that half that never got back to me, yeah, my conversion rate was between 25 and 30%. And it was because I let them talk. This doesn't always apply to politics, because you can't walk into I can't give a speech and say, I just want to hear what you have to say. Right. Although when I do most of my speeches in these conventions, I do about a 5-minute speech and then 25 minutes of Q&A, because I'd rather hear what they have to say and give them answers to what's relevant to them in that area. But you can still use that method of reaching people. So if, for example, if you're running for office, I would go around to every group I could, every Rotary clubs, 4-H's, NAACPs, and ACLUs, Black Lives Matter groups, anti-lockdown groups, pro-lockdown groups. They probably won't want to meet with you. Just because they're not getting together with anyone, but do stuff on Zoom, in person, Second Amendment groups, immigration rights groups, criminal justice groups, anyone you can meet with, and say, I'm running for office and I want to hear what your concerns are. And spend the first half hour or so of your meeting with them, online, in person, whatever, listening to them, asking them questions, and letting them answer them. Then do the empathize, reflect, explain, and then give them a path to being able to win. You can do this whether you're starting a new affiliate or trying to grow your affiliate, your local libertarian affiliate in your area, and you're saying, we just want to let people know what libertarian ideas are, but we want to hear from you first. You can do it whether you're running as a candidate. You can do this for your business. Frankly, you can do this with anything. With a girl you're trying to date or something. Like, really, you can use this with anything. But moving forward, this is how we have to do it. We have the best ideas. We have the best solutions. The only thing we don't have is the multi-billion-dollar pop culture media government complex to control people's thoughts and how they think. But our ideas are so much better that all we have to do is get in front of these people and we can win. But we can't do that by being milquetoast, because then no one will give a crap about us. We just sound like every other pandering politician they've ever heard. And we can't do it by being brutalist, because their life is already brutal enough and they don't want to hear your garbage. So We just have to meet people where they are, and we can hit them with the message, and we can bring people in who are excited to spread liberty. I want to stop just talking about ending the Fed and ending taxation and reforming healthcare so it's affordable and ending the wars and bringing the troops home and freeing families and children from cages and getting people's lives back on track after they've been ruined by the war on drugs or the war on guns. People being able to protect themselves and their loved ones, people no longer being able to having to worry about being abused at the hands of the state with no kind of accountability or anything. I want to actually see these things happen. And we do that by meeting people where they are, showing them how they do best when they are most free, and then we can win.
How about that, folks? It's like stuff we talk about here on the Brian Nichols Show. I think folks are starting to nod their head more and more in agreement, Spike, and it's exciting because it does give me just a good feeling knowing that, hey, people are starting to pay attention and we're making a difference, man. So keep up what you're doing. Definitely appreciate all the hard work you're doing at Muddied Waters. We'll include all the links there, but also make sure you follow him at Real Spike Cohen. Spike Cohen, thank you as always for joining the Brian Nichols Show.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for everything you're doing too, man.
When we're talking about living a truly free and independent life, we mean it. And that's exactly what Gary Collins, who is the creator of The Simple Life, set out to accomplish. And now you have a chance to learn all the secrets that Gary has developed over decades of trying it out himself, building these amazing courses, as you can go to thesimplelifenow.com and access 3 amazing courses. 1 being the Off the Grid Master Course, 2 being the How to Finance Your Off-Grid Home course, and 3, How to Find Your Dream Off-Grid Property course, and get an awesome 10% off at checkout by using code TBNS10. That's right, you too can learn how to live a truly free and independent lifestyle by living off-grid, and all these amazing courses are delivered to you by, yes, one Gary Collins from thesimplelifenow.com. Use code TBNS10 at checkout for 10% off your order and start living your free life today. Alrighty, folks, that's going to wrap up my conversation with the ever-amazing Spike Cohen. By the way, Spike, welcome back from your Facebook ban. Hopefully you didn't miss us too much. We missed you, though, just so you know. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on Spike and all the great stuff he's doing, and you don't want to lose him, make sure you're following him over at all the different entities that he is subscribed to, Twitter, Facebook. We'll include all the links in the show notes so it's easier for you folks. But also, please go ahead and support Spike and all the great work that he and his amazing crew are doing over at Muddied Waters. They keep fighting the great fight, and we need more folks like Spike and his team. So thank you, Spike, and the Muddied Waters crew for all you do. And also, folks, if you happen to want to go ahead and follow me while you're here in this following spree, well, go ahead, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Minds.com, or Parler.com at BNicholsLiberty. Or if you want to go ahead and just say hi, email me, Brian at BrianNicholsShow.com. By the way, I love to get your guest suggestions or different things that you've heard here on the Brian Nichols Show that you just want to go ahead and raise up as something you thought was valuable. And hey, if you want it to be more than just a private email to me, well, go ahead and share that with the world. Go ahead and tag me on Apple Podcasts, and you can go to the Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating review while you're there. But in that review, why are you a long-time listener of the Brian Nichols Show audience? Or, heck, why are you a brand new listener of the Brian Nichols Show audience? Did you listen to our COVID special? Is that why you joined the audience? Well, hey, strap in, because we have these types of conversations every single week. Often it's 3 times a week. Now it's kind of 4 times a week. And coming up here on Wednesday now it's going to be the 4th conversation here this week. We are joined once again by the amazing Nick Gillespie from Reason Magazine, most notably known for the interview with Nick Gillespie over on Reason Magazine. On Friday of last week, we had Jack Hunter on the show, and he was talking about Republican populism. Well, Nick Gillespie is returning to the show today to discuss democratic populism and what the impact of said democratic populism could have on the shape of the nation, but also the impact that said democratic populism had in this $1.9 trillion spending spree. So make sure, folks, you have gone ahead, hit subscribe so you're not missing a single episode. Yeah, I mentioned we had 5 episodes coming out here this week, so just make sure you have your sneakers on, because it's going to be a marathon. But with that being said, folks, thank you so much for joining the Brian Nichols Show. It's Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Spike Cohen. We'll see you Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.
Audio production for The Brian Nichols Show is brought to you by DB Podcast Audio. Learn more by emailing inquiries to William at dbpodaudio.com.